Hello, Council Bluffs Area Chamber of Commerce member, the Council Bluffs area of the 2022 legislative session weekly legislative update video. Always exciting to get started on this during the state legislative session, which will now run till about the middle to end of April. It's a shortened session of only 100 days because it's also an election year. So expect to see a lot of different things happen, many of which we are very much on board with and we very much are supportive of. Some of the key things that I want to touch on is that the legislature did formally gavel in and start on Monday, and then the governor gave her condition of the state address on Tuesday. She talked about a lot of different things, but some of the key things that she touched on were taxes and workforce development. And those are things that we expect to see a lot of action on within the legislative session. Within the tax bill discussion, she proposed a 4% flat tax for individual income tax, and then also talked about corporate income tax as well. That's something we are very much interested in. We are especially interested in the fact that she kind of left alone the tax credit programs. We do know that the Senate is not necessarily as interested in taking that approach and not touching any of the tax credit programs. That obviously, as we corporate and individual income tax and how the corporate side ties to. Also, a piece that the Senate we know wants to look at is the sales tax as well. So they want to look at bringing in the 3/8 sales tax increase without raising the sales tax. So they would have to kick something in and then pull it back in an equal amount of about $240 to $300 million that would initiate the funding of the Natural Resource and Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund, which would be very large for, obviously outdoor recreation, but also for placemaking, which is something we're excited about. We look forward to having discussions with our Senator Dan Dawson, who will kind of be quarterbacking those conversations. And we are really excited about the prospect of the impacts that could have not only on water quality and a litany of different things that would be funded by that 3/8 cents in sales tax, but also the placemaking characteristics and value they could potentially provide when paired with some other pieces that we are looking at as well. So that's something we are especially aware of and watching closely. We are watching how it could have potential implications on local option sales tax. That's something we want to make sure that we're watching closely. We've had conversations with local officials about that, and we'll continue to monitor that closely as those conversations happen. With workforce development, both the House and the Senate have said, and the governor have said that they very much count on this being leadership caucuses. The Republican caucuses in both the Senate and the House have kind of designated set groups that will kind of be working towards some talent and workforce development goals. Our own Brent Segrist is on the one in the House. We look forward to working with him on that in that regard and in that capacity as we move through the legislative session. Some pieces that they're also going to look at are some of the recommendations of the Child Care Task Force. That's a very important piece. So we look forward to seeing what comes out of that. There's already been 2 new child care bills proposed in addition to those that were proposed last year and are still alive. But also unemployment is something that they're taking a look at as well within that workforce development apparatus, trying to make sure that we can get more people back into the workforce quicker than they currently can in the current employment laws and regulations within incentives for teachers, and also looking at doing some things for healthcare as well, not insofar as the bonuses and retentions and things along those lines, but in looking at doing some things with medical malpractice and some other pieces that could be attractive to our healthcare providers. So we will wait and see what happens with that. Obviously, we've talked about medical malpractice quite a bit as a border community, so we'll monitor that pretty closely throughout the legislative session. I mentioned placemaking earlier. We do anticipate some movement to happen on placemaking, and with the pairing of the potential passage and implementation of I Will and the funding that will provide, we're really excited about the prospects of some transformational projects in our community. And when you think about pairing that with ARPA funds, infrastructure funds, congressional-based funding or earmark requests, and some local funding through the state, and also just other local projects we're looking at doing, that's hugely impactful. So we're really excited and in a very good place to see some major amenities and improvements within our community if done right. Airports, there is some conversation about doing some things with sales tax to try to make on an exemption side, to really try to make our airports more competitive and more attractive for people to operate out of and really create some capital for those. Also some conversation about PFCs, passenger facility charges. We look forward to learning more about that. We obviously work closely with the Council Bluffs Airport, and so far as they're a community and economic development tool, we know the county's doing some investment out there. There's some other opportunities out there as well, and we just look forward to the potential opportunities that these conversations could provide. And we actually do have Senator Dawson going out there in a few weeks to have a conversation about some of these topics. So we're very excited about the prospects and opportunities that could present. With regard to port authorities, we might look at them, and rather than saying port authority, because that makes people think of, New Orleans or New Jersey or Long Beach on the water. We're talking maybe about like regional development areas and things along those lines. Same concept, but really it would be highly applicable down on the riverfront, where there's been hundreds of millions of dollars invested on both sides of the river. We're really going to kind of be the tip of the spear on this because of the fact we're the largest MSA in the state, and we have Omaha across the river from us, and we think that the provisions within that bill could be hugely impactful to what we are trying to do on both sides of the river. Also, with talent, we're going to continue to have some information come out with regards to talent and how we can best work to attract and retain talent throughout the state. With the Iowa Chamber Alliance, we initiated and went through a talent survey process that we're currently vetting and analyzing to make sure that we get some analytics and some marketing materials and things like that. But we look forward to sharing the great information that was attained through that study that we think not only will have impacts on the legislative side, but also will have impacts locally as we all try to figure out the best way possible to attract and retain talent to our communities. So being that it's the first week of the legislative session, you will see these calls go forward until they adjourn, which targeted right now is mid to late April. We'll do them every Friday, just like we always have. I think this is a really important resource for our members to be able to see what's happening at the legislature, in addition to those policy roundtables that we'll be having on the fourth Friday of every month from noon to 1:30 with all of our local legislators. We think it's very, very important for us to provide that resource and that touch point with our legislators for our members. And we look forward to doing that. We also are having our legislative reception in person in Des Moines on February 16th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Embassy Suites. So we really look forward to getting to them on their turf during the legislative session, since we haven't been able to do that for a number of years. So we're really excited about being able to do it after a 2-year hiatus. The final thing that I'll mention is some of you might have seen on the federal side that the Supreme Court ruled on the OSHA requirement and the mandate for vaccines and testing for large employers of 100 plus. They said that that is not applicable and cannot, in their opinion, be enforced. So that means that as of now, large employers are not having to implement those practices for testing and vaccination. That does not mean that in perpetuity that it will be the case. While the Supreme Court did rule on that, it is going back down more. But as of now, they do not have to enforce that, which is helpful to those folks that would have been impacted by that. I've talked to a lot of folks that would have impacted this week, and I know that that's something they were happy to hear and welcome to the news. But we will continue to keep tabs on it because, like I said, it's not over yet. Also, one important piece to note is that the Supreme Court also ruled on the CMS portion for healthcare providers. They said that can be enforced. So that's something, as we look at our healthcare providers, which aren't only our hospitals, there are clinics, there are mental health and behavioral health providers. There's a litany of different entities who receive Medicare and Medicaid dollars. So that's hugely impactful. And I want to just note the fact that they're having very severe workforce issues, like all people are in the area, but also you compound it with the fact that they've been dealing with the pandemic for going on 2 years now, and just the trials and tribulations that has caused them as a staff and just how hard that has been on them. So we want to make sure that we're very cognizant and continue to provide information and do what we can to assist in that. But as of now, that will be enforced, and we look forward to having conversations with our medical providers in which that will impact to see how we can be of assistance going forward, as we have been throughout the entire process. With that, that will conclude our first weekly legislative update for the week of January 10th. As I said, we'll continue to do these throughout the entire legislative session. We hope you find these valuable. And if you do have any questions or any recommendations on how we could possibly be doing these better, or just any questions about any of the content that I spoke to, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'm always happy to talk about this stuff. With that, I will conclude the update and just say, have a nice weekend. Stay safe. Sickness going around, so stay safe and stay healthy. And thank you, as always, for supporting the Council Bluffs Area Chamber of Commerce.